All right, welcome back to Intro to Philosophy. I'm Tom, and today we are going to talk about Peter Singer's A Vegetarian Philosophy, right? And so Peter Singer is a Australian philosopher. I think he's in the States now. I think he's at Princeton. But he is a kind of contemporary uh, ardent utilitarian or consequentialist, right? So, and he uses a consequentialist um, argument to argue for being vegetarian, right? And so it's a short article. It's only like 4 pages. It has um, a recipe for soup at the end, vegetarian soup, dal soup. I've never tried it, but anyways, so Singer's argument. I mean, he is a consequentialist. And so, what I really want students to take from this argument is that Singer really tries to use this central consequentialist idea that we should do things for the greater good. Overall, we should, lessen suffering overall and increase happiness overall, right? And he takes this core idea and kind of is able to use it to infer that we should all be vegetarian. And um, and so what I want you to notice is that how he kind of has a strategy that is designed to kind of rein people in to looking at things from his point of view, right? For Singer's view, it doesn't really matter if you are a super animal rights, activist or something like this. He's trying to pull on your common sense intuitions, right? And this is also a very accessible article in terms of the way it's written, and kind of topics it covers. And so I really want to use it to, kind of highlight how consequentialism can be used in a specific topic, right? I mean, you can use consequentialism for environmental issues, for all kinds of things, and business ethics, and computer ethics, information ethics, all kinds of things like this. Um, so overall, you know, um, the consequentialist point is that if something we do harms more people than it helps, then it's wrong, right? If something we do helps more people than it harms, then it's good, right? This is the greater good view, right? But of course, some things that this very simple idea raises, some issues that it raises, is when it comes to inflicting harm. Who are we talking about? Right? Who gets lumped into the class of individuals that we are considering, right? So, for example, if you're going to use this kind of framework when it comes to like something like abortion, then you want to know a little bit more about where you draw the lines with personhood, right? And when it comes to things like animals, you also want to know, are they included, right? Um, you know, uh, when we're talking about, animal sentience, right? Whether or not animals have consciousness to a certain extent, self-awareness, they experience pain. I mean, I think it's pretty intuitive that many animals do, but to what extent are they on a par with humans? There's lots of questions about that. So these are all questions about the scope of our utilitarian calculus. Who gets put into our calculations, like how many people or creatures are we fitting into that scope, right? And so Sanger is one who thinks that animals are pretty intuitively put into the scope, and at least in a general sense. And he actually, in this article, I don't think he makes any commitments about to what extent a given horse or pig stands in relation to like a human being. But this is kind of the force about him talking about commercial farming practices, because it's so vast, the amount of animals that are mistreated, to put it lightly, and killed, right? That I don't think he feels the need to really have to give something like a one-to-one correspondence in terms of human pain and animal pain, right? Um, so Singer, if you notice, he begins by talking about this McLibel court case, which is really interesting. You can Google it, and you'll find there's actually a documentary on this. And um, they targeted, or these Greenpeace activists were putting out pamphlets that called McDonald's McTorture and McMurder. And as it and the court case lasted, I don't know, like a decade or something like this. And um, these individuals were up against, corporate lawyers of McDonald's for quite a while. And it turned out that the court ruled in their favor because, the charge against them, why McDonald's was suing them, is because they claimed that those pamphlets were defamation. Um, and defamation has to be a case in which you say something untrue about someone with the intent for it to, with some kind of malicious intent that it will hurt their reputation. And so um, one kind of condition of this is that what you're saying is false. And the court ruled that what they were saying is not technically false, that by any reasonable definition, what they are saying, what McDonald's does in their commercial farming is reasonably called torture, right? The way they treat their animals. And so chickens and cows, right? So Singer uses this to kind of motivate what you might think is the first premise in his view, which is that animals are, lots and lots of animals undergo lots and lots of suffering every day at commercial farms, right? Um, and so that's kind of like the first point he just wants to make here. And then when it comes to, I'm not going to go over these, but there are three kind of anecdotes he touches on. First one we just mentioned, this idea from from the Justice Bell, that his ruling that what happened in McDonald's, the commercial farms that they employ, where it's torturing animals. But he also goes over two other anecdotes about this Thai Buddhist philosopher who thinks that it's okay to eat meat if it's not killed specifically for you. And then there's also this discussion he has with the philosopher Jonathan Glover that argues that, that even one person can make a difference based on this kind of analogy with beans, of villagers and bandits taking beans. But you can read those. But these are all to just motivate his view, right? And his overall position is that, we have a moral obligation to lessen suffering in the world. Factory farms inflict a great deal of suffering on animals every day. So therefore, we have a moral obligation to stop factory farming practices, and the best way to do this is to be vegetarian, right? So the thing about Singer's argument to recognize is, if you think that we do have the first kind of premise here, that we have a moral obligation to lessen suffering in the world, which seems very intuitive. It's really hard to say that that's not the case. And you admit that being vegetarian would greatly reduce the kind of suffering that goes on at commercial farms, then you're implicitly committed to the idea that you should be a vegetarian, right? And what he kind of does here is kind of, hooks you in with very simple ideas, very simple ethical ideas, and then kind of brings you to his conclusion. So that's the thing I really want students to focus on with this article, is that he really starts off with very simple premises, and he's not pulling on your heartstrings. He's not appealing to your emotions. He's not, telling people that they're, stupid for eating meat or whatever, or that, we need to bring cows and chickens home with us and take care of them or anything like this. He's saying, look, if you really think that we should stop suffering, then being vegetarian is a great way to do this. And if you really subscribe to that, then you really ought to be a vegetarian. And, when it comes to the utilitarian calculus of this, you know, lots of people like to eat meat, but they can survive without it and they can survive very well. And it's actually not that great of an inconvenience, um, to not eat a cheeseburger, right? And so he's kind of pulling on this utilitarian calculus as well, right? That the benefits of being vegetarian greatly outweigh the disadvantages, right? So this is his overall position, and I'm just kind of emphasizing some of the main ideas here. Um, but yeah, that's Singer's article, and I will talk with you again next video. All right.